Hi, welcome back to Leafy Advice. I'm Laura, and today we are going to talk about some sunlight. So first, I just want to get into the basics of sunlight before I get into the specifics of like what sunburn versus not enough sun looks like with plants. So obviously plants need sun to photosynthesize, and they need photosynthesis to grow. So as a result, usually with plants, is that they'll end up growing towards the sun. And an example of that would be, I've got this plant, and right now it looks like it's backwards because all these plants are starting to grow towards the sun. So you want to rotate your plants just to keep them kind of growing straight, and I like doing that especially to help prevent them from growing so far towards the sun that they end up tipping over. I want my plants to be able to support themselves. So when talking about light and sun, it's important to know the difference between like direct versus indirect sun and like high, medium, and low light. So direct sun would be the plant is close to the window and there's nothing obstructing the sunlight from reaching the plant. So that includes both like sheer curtains and stuff like, if there's a massive tree outside that blocks most of the sun from coming in directly through the window, you would actually have indirect sunlight coming in through that window, even if you don't have anything in front of the window yourself. And then indirect sunlight would be, obviously, if there's anything in front of the window. So like if you have sheer curtains, if you have, an umbrella outside, stuff like that. And also something would be how close the plant is to the window. So generally, if it's closer to the window, it's more direct sunlight. So if you have a super bright window, but you've decided to put your plant in the opposite corner, it might be receiving indirect sunlight because the sun never actually directly hits the plant. And another thing that's important to consider is actually which direction your window is facing. So these next things are specifically if you're in the northern hemisphere, but if you have a north-facing window, the sunlight is generally like the weakest coming in through that window. You'll never get direct sunlight on your plants, and it'll be like the lowest light. A south-facing window is the opposite. It's got the most direct sunlight, and it especially has like the hottest like midday sunlight. And then as the sun rises in the east, if you have an east-facing window, it gets lots of morning light, which a lot of plants really like because it's not as intense and it's not as hot. And then when the sun sets in the west, you'll get, if you have a west-facing window, you'll get, western sunlight that's a little hotter and you don't get as much. So like a highlight window would be one that gets like 8 hours of sunlight in a day. That's like a south-facing window or a southeast-facing window or a southwest-facing window, and a low-light window is a north-facing window, and like a medium light I would consider both like east or west-facing. So yeah, last thing I'm going to say in this video is generally it's kind of like two rules. Plants will thrive with sunlight and they'll tolerate low light. So even plants that are called like low light plants, they still need a certain amount of sun, and if they're literally placed in a completely dark room, they'll survive, but they may not put out any new growth, and if they do, it might not be the most lush growth that you could get out of that plant. So you have to look at what your plant needs, but it's definitely not a bad idea to think about sometimes like giving it a little more light than is written on it, on like the little plant care sheet of what it says it needs. So I will see you in the next video, but thank you for watching.